Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Police released more details about the horrific bus crash, which left 15 dead and 10 others injured just outside of Carberry, Manitoba. Samaritan's Purse is sending crews to both northern Alberta and Nova Scotia to help homeowners sift through the charred remains of their homes. And a guilty plea has been entered involving parents accused of abusing their baby daughter in Lethbridge. BCN's Angela Stewart has that story.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. We have more details now on the horrific crash on Thursday involving a semi-truck and a bus carrying seniors from Dauphin, Manitoba. 13 women and 2 men died, and 10 others were injured, including 6 who were in critical condition in hospital. The collision occurred near Carberry, which is located about 2 hours south of Dauphin. Police say this tragedy has been difficult not only for the families involved, but also for the first responders. The company that owns the semi-trailer has pledged to cooperate fully with the investigation into the cause of the crash. Police say they brought in investigators who worked on the Humboldt Broncos bus crash because it echoes the 2018 tragedy in Saskatchewan. They say there could be a criminal element to this incident.
The RCMP were dispatched to a motor vehicle collision at the intersection of Highway 1 and Highway 5 near Carberry, Manitoba. A semi-trailer was heading eastbound on Highway 1, and a bus carrying a number of senior citizens from Dauphin was headed southbound on Highway 5. The bus had already crossed the westbound lanes of Highway 1 and was crossing the eastbound lanes when it was struck by the semi. Immediately, it became apparent that this was a mass casualty situation. Numerous RCMPs were deployed from across the province. We need to be alive to the fact that there could be wrongdoing, and if so, there could be a criminal element to this investigation.
Manitoba Premier Heather Stefanson posted her condolences on social media yesterday. The Conservative MP for Dauphin, Dan Mazur, says his community is shaken up following the devastating bus crash in Manitoba that claimed at least 15 lives. Mazur says this wound cuts very deep.
I represent this rural region, and I know that rural Canadians are strong and resilient. I know that this tragic news has touched the hearts of Canadians across this country, but I also know that it will leave a wound on many communities and families, a wound that may never heal. Thank you to the first responders for being there in this time of need. On behalf of all parliamentarians, I extend my sincere thoughts and prayers to the victims of this devastating accident. Canadians are here for you at this time. Thank you.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau expressed his sympathies to the families who lost loved ones and to those who are still in hospital following the deadly crash. He made the comments just before a meeting with Montreal Mayor Valérie Plante.
I want to express all my deepest sympathies and condolences to the people of Carberry, Manitoba, and the folks who have lost loved ones, who are living through moments of tremendous anguish right now. I think of the people who are in hospital now with injuries. I can't imagine what these families are going through. It, of course, brings back memories of other terrible incidents like in Humboldt, Saskatchewan. But I know that all of Canadians stand with people during this very, very difficult time. There are lots of questions, but mostly there are lots of tears right now, and we will be there for each other.
The Alberta government says the evacuation order for the town of Edson will be lifted late today. Emergency officials say, however, that the town will remain on a 4-hour evacuation alert due to more wildfire activity. The evacuation order for some areas of Yellowhead County and Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation have also been lifted, and a partial re-entry began on Wednesday. Evacuation orders remain in effect for the hamlet of Fort Chipewyan, Mikisew First Nation, Fort Chipewyan Métis Nation, and the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation. Fire officials say 379 of the wildfires were human-caused. 138 were started by lightning, and 125 are now under investigation. Just over 13,600 Albertans are still out of their homes due to the wildfires. Steve Holmstrom is a man of faith who says he's very thankful that his home near Drayton Valley was spared during the wildfires. He says it was simply a miracle that his cabin was not destroyed.
What was the miracle to me was, even though this forest was mowed down, that cabin, all around it, I'll take you over there, that cabin never even got singed. The fire went right close, and then it just stopped. It went around the cabin and then totally burnt everything past it and kept going. This little backhoe of mine, totally destroyed. This is the trailer we kept our tools in. But this cabin, not even touched.
That is a miracle. Make sure you catch the powerful interview with Drayton Valley resident Steve Holmstrom and myself coming up later in our broadcast. Samaritan's Purse Canada is doing their part to help so many Canadians impacted by the wildfires. Frank King is the news media relations manager for the Christian group. He says they're sending crews to help homeowners sift through the rubble and clean up in both northern Alberta and in Nova Scotia.
We have a 14-vehicle convoy that has arrived in the remote northern Alberta community of Fox Lake, which was devastated by the wildfires that have been, burning throughout Alberta for the last month or so. And I believe they've lost approximately 100 buildings there. And so we're going to be up there, and whenever we're invited to, we're going to be have volunteers all outfitted with Tyvek suits and masks and all that sort of thing. And they will be sifting through the rubble and the ashes of these homes and buildings to try and find anything of value, like heirlooms or keepsakes or, who knows what. Like in one case, when we were working in Fort McMurray in 2016 after the wildfires, we found this beautiful chess set that this homeowner treasured, and it survived the flames. So that could be something we find in Fox Lake as well. So we're going to be up there for a couple of weeks to come until we've helped everyone we can help. And that's just Alberta. And now, as of Saturday, we're going to have a convoy of vehicles traveling to Nova Scotia to help folks. We've been invited there by the towns or districts of Barrington and Shelburne. That's about 3 hours or so southwest of Halifax, and we've been invited there to help folks because that area was part of that whole devastating Nova Scotia wildfire stuff. And there's about 150 buildings or so that got wiped out by that blaze. And so we're going to be doing the same thing in Barrington and Shelburne, Nova Scotia, as we're doing right now in Fox Lake.
That was Frank King, News Media Relations Manager with Samaritan's Purse Canada, joining us from Calgary. Environment Canada confirms that 10 tornadoes touched down earlier this week in our province. The weather agency says 9 of the twisters developed between Medicine Hat and Calgary during a 5-hour period on Wednesday. There was also one spotted near Picture Butte here in southwestern Alberta on the same day. Fortunately, only minor damage was reported and there were no injuries. Well, it was a beautiful Friday across much of southwestern Alberta. Lots of sunshine and temperatures in the mid-20s. Jeanette Rocher is now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, it's nice how right now, but we may want to get Dad an umbrella for Father's Day?
Yeah, that might be the perfect gift, Hal, because it is supposed to be a bit of a soggy one this weekend, particularly Father's Day Sunday. Now, as we look into Saturday, we're seeing a slight chance of showers, around 30% beginning around noon. Risk of thunderstorms, though, in the afternoon, and fairly warm, though, looking at 26 degrees for a high on Saturday. As we look ahead to Sunday, Father's Day, a little bit of a different story. Going to be much cooler weather, only in the teens, and a higher chance of rain as well, looking at 60% chance. And Hal, I will be back later in the show to give you that full 7-day forecast along with the national weather forecast.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. The mother accused in the abuse of an infant girl pleaded guilty to charges earlier today in a Lethbridge courtroom. Details of the case were also read aloud, and a warning that this story does contain some disturbing content. BCN's Angela Stewart has more.
Making an appearance via CCTV footage Friday morning, the mother charged with failing to provide the necessaries of life has pled guilty, and she will remain in custody. An agreed statement of facts was read out loud, and the details of this case are quite grim. Court learned a healthy baby girl was born in early December to the mother and father, who both cannot be named under a publication ban. In mid-January, police were called to a North Side home after receiving a welfare tip that a 6-week-old baby girl had been repeatedly abused. When police arrived, the father of the child had answered the door, and officials found the mother and baby sleeping in the next room. The baby was found with extensive injuries, including involuntary arm movements. She was transported to Alberta Children's Hospital in Calgary. Prosecution read the baby had suffered a seizure on the way to the hospital. She also suffered injuries to her spinal cord and hemorrhages to her eyes, with her left eye sustaining the worst. The court learned recovery time for her injuries was unknown, according to doctors, as they were worse than a motor vehicle crash. At the time, the couple was living with a roommate who had witnessed the assault. The roommate told the mother to alert police, but she did not. It's believed the father was alone with the baby on multiple occasions, and the mother wanted to take the infant to the doctors to get looked at, but the father said to wait. It was the roommate who then alerted his caseworker of what had transpired. The mother's statement also read the father, the roommate, and her were the only people who had access to the child. The baby has been discharged from hospital, but doctors are unsure if she will be able to see out of her left eye, adding she might live the rest of her life with cerebral palsy due to the injuries of her spine. Well, the mother's matter has been adjourned until August 18th. At that time, sentencing will take place. The father's case has been adjourned for 1 week, returning on June 23rd. For Bridge City News, I'm Angela Stewart.
Lethbridge police say their non-emergency complaints line is being automated to connect callers with the right resources. They say this move will also free up dispatcher time to focus on emergency calls. Officials say beginning June 20th, the interactive voice response will be added to the non-emergency line. If the situation is an emergency, callers will be directed to call 911, but if not, they'll stay on the line and select from various options. The non-emergency complaints line is answered by dispatchers in the Lethbridge Public Safety Communications Centre. Last year, they answered close to 34,000 non-emergency calls. The 130-year-old McIntyre Ranch, located just south of Lethbridge, has entered into a historic partnership with two conservation groups. The Nature Conservancy of Canada and Ducks Unlimited Canada have joined forces to help ensure the ranch will continue to be protected for many years to come. Video journalist Micah Quinn sat down with the key players in the significant deal to discuss the details.
Approximately that area is a 9-mile by 10-mile area.
The vast McIntyre Ranch covers a total of 22,000 hectares of land. The Thrall family owns the ranch and have worked closely with the Nature Conservancy of Canada and Ducks Unlimited Canada to ensure there are provisions put in place to protect the ranch's natural grasslands and wetlands.
In the McIntyre Ranch case, over 90% is native rough fescue grassland, interspersed with many natural wetlands. And so we create the easement so that those will not be ever converted to another use, whether that's development or to cultivation. So we're keeping those intact.
The total cost of the project is not being disclosed.
McIntyre Ranch has asked that we keep this private. But what I can say is this is one of the largest projects we've done.
Right now, NCC is embarking on a campaign to raise the remaining $3 million. And so the bulk of that is for the cost to secure this project, as well as to manage it into the future.
McIntyre Ranch is also home to over 100 wildlife species,
including 13 species at risk. This includes species such as short-eared owl, chestnut-collared longspur. These are grassland birds, and grassland birds are some of our fastest declining bird species in Canada. So by ensuring we can protect their habitat, we can make sure that these birds have a home well into the future.
According to the Nature Conservancy of Canada, our country's grasslands continue to disappear due to land conversion, with nearly 60,000 hectares lost every year, including an estimated 10,000 hectares annually in Alberta. As of now, around 26% of native prairie grasslands remain in our province. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
22,000 hectares, that's a lot of land. A local nonprofit group which supports adults with developmental disabilities is giving back to the community in McGrath in a big way. BCN's Naveen Day was invited to an open house of a new food pantry.
SASH is a nonprofit society that provides community access and home living supports to adults with developmental disabilities. Darren Bennett, executive director of SASH, says the organization had limited ways of helping the community coming out of the pandemic, and the idea of a food pantry in McGrath was suggested by one of his staff. He says he reached out to local businesses and organizations in and around the area to determine the need.
We started with just talking, finding what the need was, and then we discussed whether it would be something that SASH could be able to incorporate. We talked to the staffing and some of the individuals we support to see if this would be something they would want to do, and they all said yes. So it kind of just came together as a community initiative of something that we could provide here at SASH that would help the individuals we support be able to give back to the community. A lot of times SASH gets a lot from the community, and we just wanted to have something that we could do to give back to the community ourselves, and the food pantry was the idea that just came forward.
The first hamper pickup will begin on June 23rd and will continue the second and fourth Friday of each month. An open house was held on Wednesday afternoon to let the community come and meet the staff, volunteers, and tour the facility. Devin Ferguson, who is the Community Access Coordinator, says the reaction from members of the community was positive.
They were excited. They were impressed with the variety. We're excited. So we are hopeful that come next Friday, which will be the fourth Friday of the month, we will see community members down here wanting to pick up hampers, wanting to get involved and to donate.
Donations can be dropped off at 22N First Street West in McGrath between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. Tuesday through Friday. Or arrangements can be made by emailing foodpantry@sashab.ca. For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
What a great initiative. Conservative MP Michael Cooper discussed his private member's bill on Friday. It's Bill C-343. It is called the Canada-Taiwan Relations Framework Act. Cooper says this new bill, if passed, will ensure that Canada's relationship with Taiwan continues to grow.
This legislation provides a framework to strengthen economic, cultural, and legal relations between Canada and Taiwan. Strengthening relations between Canada and Taiwan is not only in Taiwan's interest, it is just as much in Canada's interest. After all, Taiwan is one of Canada's largest trading partners. Indeed, it is the 11th in the world, boasting more than $12 billion in bilateral trade.
Canada's top court says the Safe Third Country Agreement is in fact constitutional. The pact allows Canada and the United States to control the amount of asylum seekers who cross the border. The Supreme Court of Canada asked the federal court to take a further look at arguments by opponents that the agreement violates Section 15 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. This is over allegations of unequal treatment for women in the United States who are fleeing domestic violence.
An agreement which, for close to 20 years, has prevented most refugee claimants who arrive at the U.S.-Canada border fleeing persecution from the right to seek protection in Canada, sending them back to the U.S. on the grounds that it is a safe place for them. The U.S. is not a safe country for refugees, and our organizations have brought overwhelming evidence that sending people who are seeking safety here back to the U.S. causes serious violations of rights that are protected both under the Canadian Charter and international law. Today's decision from the Supreme Court has mixed results for refugees and refugee rights in Canada. But nothing has changed today in terms of the dangers that are faced by refugees at the border.
Stats Canada says our country now has a population of over 40 million people. The milestone comes partly due to a wave of new immigrants as part of Ottawa's promise to bring in 500,000 people a year by the year 2025. Stats Canada says the 40 million mark came faster than expected. Well, it was a beautiful TGIF here in Lethbridge today. I saw a number of people out riding those e-scooters around the city. But some wet weather, however, is on the way for the Father's Day weekend. Full weather details are coming up. You know, it's a nice day to go out for a cruise with the top down if you happen to own a convertible. Lots of sunshine and nice and warm here in Lethbridge. Jeanette Rocher is in now with a full look at the forecast. Jeanette, if we want to take Dad out to a show and shine this weekend and maybe check out the classic ragtops, Saturday may be the better day?
Yeah, well, we are looking at a chance of showers on actually both days. So either way you cut it, you should bring your umbrella with you this weekend. We're looking at a little bit slightly slimmer chance on Saturday, though. 30% chance beginning around noon. High of 26 degrees, though, so still fairly warm. Sunday, much different story there. A little bit cooler temperatures, 19 only for a high, 60% chance of showers. So going to be a bit of a wet one on Father's Day. As we look to Monday and Tuesday, fairly sunny skies, high of 20 degrees. And then we dip back to the teens again on Tuesday with a high of only 18 degrees. 19 expected to be the high on Wednesday. And then we're back up into the 20s on Thursday with a high of 21 degrees. So it looks like as we get throughout the week, we're going higher than the average for this time of year and then dipping lower and then kind of ending the week back around seasonable. So average high this time of year, 22, average low, 9 degrees. 35 was our high temperature on this day. That happened back in 1961. And in 1994, it was a chilly -1. Hard to believe that happened in June, but it did. 5:23, that's when the sun rose this morning. Sunset this evening at 9:41 p.m. It's basically the exact same as yesterday, 16 hours and 18 minutes rather. Okay, on the west coast tomorrow, looking at a mix of sun in Victoria, 19 for a high, same thing in Vancouver, but showers, looking at 40% chance of showers there. Edmonton, 20, still dealing with that poor air quality due to the wildfires, but that 30% chance of showers, hopefully that should clear things up for them a little bit. Calgary, looking at 60% chance of showers, high of 21 there. As we get to the rest of the prairies here, looking at Saskatoon, mainly clear skies, high of 23, 25 for a high in Regina, and an expected high of 23 in Winnipeg tomorrow with a 30% chance of showers. As we look to the central part of the country, mainly sunny skies in Toronto expected tomorrow, high of 24 degrees. Now, Ottawa is also dealing with some poor air quality due to the wildfire smoke, 22 for a high. They are also looking at a chance of showers tomorrow, so hopefully that can clear some of that up. Montreal earlier today was under a smog warning, but 5 to 10 millimeters of rain is expected tomorrow with a high of 18 degrees. So hopefully all that rain should clear up their air quite a little bit there in Montreal. 18 expected to be the high in Fredericton tomorrow with a chance of showers and fog dissipating. Halifax as well, 22, mix of sun and cloud. They're also looking at fog in the morning. 16 in Charlottetown tomorrow, looking at a 30% chance of showers. And fog retreating into the coast in St. John's tomorrow after some drizzle ends in the morning. By around noontime, it should clear up there. High of 15 degrees and a little bit warmer inland, more like 18. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Stats Canada says wholesale sales fell 1.4% to $80.9 billion in April. That excludes petroleum products, other hydrocarbons, also grains and oil seeds. The agency blames the drop on the food, beverage, and tobacco subsectors as sales fell in 4 of the 7 categories it tracks. Sales in the miscellaneous category fell 8.8% to $10.4 billion in April, while the food, beverage, and tobacco product subsector dropped 2% to $14.8 billion. New residential and commercial developments are going up on the west side of the city. A new set of townhomes is being built in Copperwood, along with 10 new businesses that will be moving into the area. A realtor for the new developments, Curtis Hawkins, says this is the first of its kind for the city of Lethbridge.
With commercial below and then residential living above, it's new for the community and new for Lethbridge, meaning that you can buy one of these units and like have a commercial space down below and live above, whereas normally with commercial buildings it's only like lease available. So we're hoping that it brings some more opportunity for business owners to have their own business at home. Obviously since COVID, work from home has been there's been a big push for work from home since COVID, so hopefully this can help some entrepreneurs have their own commercial space while still be able to have their home as well.
What a cool concept. Short drive to work. By the way, Hawkins says the homes are up for sale right now. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 51 points on the day to finish at 19,975. The Dow was down 108 points to 34,299. The S&P 500 was down 16 on the day to 4409, and the Nasdaq was down 93 points to 13,689. West Texas Intermediate Oil was up $1.05 to $71.67 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 9 cents to $2.62 US. Gold was down 36 cents to $19.5766 US an ounce, and silver was up 34 cents to $24.20 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $11.32 per bushel, barley's at $9.12, canola's at $16.31, and corn is at $10.57 per bushel. Live cattle were up 78 cents to $178.35. Feeder cattle August contract was up 80 cents to $234.93, and lean hogs July contract was up 93 cents to $92.85. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 75.76 US. Recapping one of our top stories, Manitoba police confirmed that 15 people died and 10 others were injured after a semi-truck collided with a bus near Carberry. The bus was carrying seniors from Dauphin, Manitoba. 6 people remain in hospital in critical condition. Investigators who worked on the Humboldt Broncos bus crash have been brought in to help police with their investigation. Many have offered their condolences on the tragedy, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Manitoba Premier Heather Stefanson. Steve Holmstrom is a man who is counting his blessings. His home was spared by the wildfires in Drayton Valley, Alberta. Other areas of his property were not as fortunate. And he'll share the details of how wildfire impacted his family coming up momentarily. Listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. The Norbridge Senior Center is hosting their inaugural Father's Day Show and Shine barbecue on Sunday, June 18th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the parking lot of 1904 13th Avenue North. All proceeds will go to support the Norbridge Senior Center's recreation programs. For more information, visit norbridgeseniors.com. Go back in time and see what it was like to live as a pioneer. Coyote Flats Pioneer Village is a Western heritage museum located 1.5 kilometers south of Pitcher Butte. Walk through the village and see a railway station, post office, fire hall, school, and so much more. The museum is open daily from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. with admission of $10 per person or $20 per family. For more information, visit coyoteflats.org. And that's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar.
Albertans have been shocked by the forest fire devastation across so many regions of our province. So many homes have been lost and so many people have been evacuated as firefighters are trying to gain the upper hand. It has been very hot and dry in many parts of the province, especially in the central and northern regions. One Drayton Valley business owner who's been a victim of the fires is Steve Holmstrom, and he joins us now from Drayton Valley. Steve, welcome to Bridge City News.
Hey, thanks for having me, Hal.
Steve, what was your first reaction to the fires in and around your area? We can see some of the devastation and some of the burnt out areas right now.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking. I mean, obviously, we were praying our hearts out that nothing would happen on our property. We have 300 acres of beautiful treed area just on the edge of Drayton Valley. And so we had all of our friends praying that the angels would keep the flames off of our property. But that did not take place. The fire went right through both of our quarter sections and just devastated both quarters, the forests. And there's still a few trees here and there, patches, but it's a lot of just totally mowed down areas.
Let's talk about some of the maybe homes that were lost, and hopefully there were no injuries.
No injuries that I've heard of. There's a few homes have been lost. I know I have a really good friend who's just a mile from here. His home was totally destroyed in the fire. And so that was heartbreaking. But my neighbor right next door, praise God, he is no damage to him. And I know the firefighters worked really hard, especially for the houses. They were really trying to protect houses.
Now, there were some miracles that actually took place in and around your area. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, on my property, we started a number of years ago. The Lord spoke to me about this property that I'm standing on right now, and He said to buy it. He said, "I'll meet you there." And so we purchased this land. I'm an evangelist, and so we purchased this land, and we built. I'll show you a little bit. We came out here into the woods and we made a big area where we could gather people. Who's going to come to Drayton Valley? I don't know, but I put out an invitation. We built a big stage here and we have a baptismal tank right here. And 300 people came to our first gathering. and spent the whole weekend. They'd come in Trents, RVs, motorhomes. The next gathering, 700 people came. And the last gathering, almost 2,000 people came. It was just outrageous to see the people right here where I'm standing, just thousands of people worshiping Jesus. And we preached off this stage. And just over there is a cabin that I built. And that's where I come and pray and seek the Lord every day. I spent more time than I want to confess building that cabin with friends. And what was the miracle to me was, even though this forest was mowed down, that cabin, all around it, I'll take you over there, that cabin never even got singed. The fire went right close and then it just stopped. It went around the cabin and then totally burnt everything past it and kept going. Even there's a trailer right here, I'll show you in a second, that was totally destroyed, burnt to a crisp, and yet my cabin didn't even get singed. And I'm talking about a fire that jumped the highway just a quarter of a kilometer from here. It jumped the highway a couple 100 yards, lit up my property, and then mowed through this area. As you can see, everything is black.
Wow.
There's just smoke coming up everywhere.
So we saw the fact that the cabin was saved. We saw that the baptismal tank was saved, the stage. It's pretty incredible considering, look at all the devastation that you incurred.
This little backhoe of mine totally destroyed. This is the trailer we kept our tools in. But this cabin, not even touched. And so to me, it was just the Lord saying, you know what, Steve, I know what you can handle. And this is just a place where I love to meet the Lord. And so I still have a place to pray, to preach, and to baptize. And even our gathering coming up this summer, July 20 to 22nd, we've already have over 1,500 people registered before the fire, registered to come to this gathering out here in the wilderness.
So outside of the trailer and some of the tools, and it looked like a backhoe, what else was damaged with your business here?
Not business. This was all ministry. This was the Lord's, and to be honest, we gave it to him. It was never mine. People are saying, Steve, why, how are you doing? Like, worried. And I never owned this. I never felt like I owned this. This property is the Lord's. And so I know he'll do what he does. The devil steals your stuff, you get 7 times back. You just stand in faith, stay in joy, and good stuff comes your way.
So how many other acreages or farms, maybe in and around the Drayton Valley region, have been impacted by the devastating wildfires? What have you heard so far?
It would be heaps. I don't think the numbers, final numbers, have come out yet, but all around Drayton Valley, there's lots. I mean, as far as it's strange. I mean, our 2 quarters, this is probably one of the largest areas right close to Drayton Valley, but there would be spots and farms and acreages all around. Most people kept their homes. Like I said, there weren't many homes that were destroyed, but a lot of people lost some beautiful trees. But we can plant more trees, and we can build again. What
about livestock? Any livestock impacted around the area?
I haven't heard about that, but I would be certain that that will definitely, because when they said evacuate, they gave us like 30 minutes. You just can't load up 100 cows in 30 minutes.
Now, some of the investigations are ongoing right now. What have you heard as to the cause of some of these wildfires in Drayton Valley?
I haven't heard an exact cause. I know some people, it's all rumors. There's a lot of suspicion that these were started by people who wanted to cause trouble. It's a little suspicious that 4 or 5 fires break out in the same day or two, all in different places, but all near the same place. It is shocking. You got one fire half an hour north of Drayton, another one south of Drayton, another one east of Drayton. It's suspicious, but I don't know as far as what they've come to any conclusions.
Yeah, we don't know if they're arsonists, pyromaniacs out there. We'll have to wait until the investigation is complete. Let's talk about how these wildfires have actually brought the community, and in particular, the church, the Christian community, together in your region.
Well, nobody's even allowed back in town yet. I got a special pass because I own an oil field rental company, and I have to come in here to get some work done. So we'll see how this is going to play out in the days ahead. But certainly I've seen it in even in with my customers who rent from I own a company called Zinger Rentals, and our customers instantly started reaching out to us saying, Steve, if you have anyone who's evacuating, who needs a place, send them to me. And literally my staff who had nowhere to go, a number of my staff went and moved in with my customers out on acreages in different places. I'm getting pictures of my mechanics, 6 kids are out there on the farm enjoying the horses for my friend Darren who rents from me. He's taken care of. And I got another customer, Kevin. He's got a whole bunch of my other staff. And so they've just been pulling together, taking care of each other, loving each other. As far as the Christian community, I think we're going to see that in about a week. If the Lord would let us get back out here, if the smoke isn't too bad and we can have that gathering May the 20th, I believe you'll see maybe thousands of believers or just people who care coming out to the altar to pray and to bless the land. But I know this is going to bring people together because that's what tragedy does. Paul talked about that, the fellowship of suffering. And isn't it something how our fellowship through suffering brings such sweetness? People who maybe would have never connected become lifelong friends because they helped each other in a time of need.
So, Steve, we've seen the devastation in Fort McMurray, how it wiped out that city, and they're still rebuilding, so many years later, the May 2016 wildfires, and they're still rebuilding. Let's talk about maybe the connection about what it's going to take for you to rebuild your community in Drayton Valley as well.
Well, fortunately, we didn't burn our homes. That's what their town really suffered, in that the homes were burned. And so thank God the flames got real close, right on the edge of town. I think it was licking the Tim Hortons, which would have been devastating for a lot of people. We love our Timmies, but it never got into town. So I think in comparison, it's not going to be the same way. I think the heartache is for the people around the acreages and people around, and certainly people who lost animals. But it's always amazing how people pull together. Last time there was a fire a year ago, one of the teachers, their horse died in the fire, and instantly there was a what are those online money fundraiser things called? I can't remember, but it was on Facebook, and instantly someone raised like $5,000 or $7,000 to buy her a new horse. Wow. And you'll find that will happen. Where there's been loss, people's hearts move, and I believe this will bring more good than we can imagine. I've been saying from the beginning, if you could see how much good and blessing even this tragedy has bought me, you wouldn't be feeling sorry for me, you'd be congratulating me. And the Lord knows I love souls more than I love trees. And my prayer is that this is going to draw people together, that people who maybe weren't open to the things of Christ, they'll be softer, they'll open their hearts, God will meet them. Jesus will do what he always does, heal broken hearts and set captives free.
Yeah, it's amazing how God can turn a tragedy into a triumph. Steve, let's talk about this event called Altar. You're hoping to host it again this year, and let's flesh it out a little bit more, what it's all about.
Yeah, if you wanted to get more information, thealtar.ca, ALTAR is how you spell altar, thealtar.ca. But we have a gathering, and thousands came to this last one, and we just worship the Lord all weekend long. We have great preaching and teaching. We got some great speakers this year, and but we just seek the Lord, and we go for walks, and it's about building relationship. Everything is free. Even last year, my wife fed 7,000 meals. Now, our cookhouse was burned to a crisp, and a few other things. So we're still figuring out what it might look like. But we never charge anything. We just trust the Lord, and he provides. The last gathering, I think, cost $100,000. All we did was put out an offering bucket, and guess what? It all came in. And so people come, and they bring in their tents and their motorhomes and their RVs. Some people, we fill hotels in town. But it's a wonderful time worshiping the Lord. We call it the Away in the Wilderness Gathering. And you can register at thealtar.ca, and all the information is there.
Steve, that's wonderful. Now, when it comes to rebuilding financially and the loss that you've suffered, is your insurance company helping you out? Is the province saying we're going to help you out as well with some funds?
No, not that I know of. We don't. There's no insurance to cover, this kind of stuff, the trees, whatever. Maybe my little backhoe. I'm not sure. So yeah, no, there's nothing there, and I'm not sure if there is grants or whatever. But to be honest, I know as hard as it is to believe, like, I don't even worry about it. The Lord spoke to me in 2005, and He said, Steve, if you just do what I tell you to do, you'll never worry about money another day of your life. And I started obeying Him in some areas, and I saw the blessing and the favor of the Lord on my life. And we've never worried about money. God's the one who gave us the money to buy all this land. God's prospered us to build these cabins and build these stages. And how are we going to rebuild them? You know what? I'm going to trust in the Lord. He's amazing. I was in a $2 million fundraiser to build a barn, a worship barn, and we had $250,000 raised. Well, now maybe it's a $3 million fundraiser. But you know what? 2 million, 3 million to God is nothing. And so I just keep leaning into Him, saying yes to Him, trust Him, and He always comes through for me. Money shows up, always.
Yeah, God does provide, absolutely. Steve Holmstrom, another Alberta resident impacted by the devastating wildfire just outside of Drayton Valley and in Drayton Valley. Thanks so much for your time today.
God bless you, Hal. Thanks for having me.
With the Alberta election in our rearview mirror, many say it is time to look ahead and see what the future looks like for our province. Josh Andrus of Project Confederation has some thoughts about the Alberta provincial election and what the possibilities may look like for Alberta's future. He joins us now from Calgary. Josh, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thanks for having me. It's always an honor to be broadcast into Lethbridge.
Well, we're glad to have you on here today, Josh. Can you just explain explain the focus of what Project Confederation is?
Well, Project Confederation was born out of really a rise in Western alienation across Alberta. In particular, our movement has expanded into Saskatchewan and parts of British Columbia at this point. But the idea is to try and bring the country together. We view Confederation as a work in progress, as a country with unique regions and changing ideas about how to deal with the local problems. So Project Confederation, we launched in 2019 with an objective to try and assuage that feeling of alienation by getting a stronger Western Canadian presence in Ottawa. We launched a 9-point policy agenda called A New Alberta Agenda in October of that year, which outlined 9 different policy steps that we recommended the Kenney government take. Those ranged anywhere from an Alberta pension plan, an Alberta police force, to a fully revamped Senate, where it's a Triple E Senate, an elected Senate with an equal number of senators per province and effective power so that it can act as a regional balance in a country where the House of Commons has 199 of the 338 seats in Ontario and Quebec.
Right. Now, the grassroots part I get, but isn't Confederation really set in stone?
Well, no. I mean, the idea is to get constitutional changes. I mean, the Constitution of Canada was repatriated in 1982, and since then there have been a series of attempted changes. Now, those have seemed to all die, but we think that in order for the country to be stronger, we do need to recognize that there are unique regions in the country, right? Like, I believe Alberta is a very unique region in the country in the sense that we're very entrepreneurial and independent minded in the way that we approach our goals in life. And Quebec has a unique culture as well with their language and religion. So the idea is to strengthen ties across the country by trying to seek changes to the Constitution that respect regional differences across the country.
So you touched on this a little bit, but can you share with us like some more items in Confederation you think can be changed to make the future more equitable for Alberta, as well as maybe other provinces as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does start and stop with the Senate. We do need to have like meaningful changes that are consistent, right? Something that kind of locks the way that we do business into into fruition, as well as we do want to hold an immediate referendum to clarify Section 92 and 121 of the Constitution. Essentially, that gives Canadians the right for free trade across the country for goods, services, and infrastructure. We want to hold we would like to collect our own revenue from personal income tax as we do for corporate taxes, as Quebec has tried to achieve for years. Create an Alberta pension plan was another one, as well as a Canadian employment insurance program. Alberta provincial police force, as well as give us a little bit more control over immigration, in the sense that we want the right kind of people coming here, in the sense that they're ready to work, they want to contribute to Canadian society. So and we do have a blue collar economic system. So that's really what the angle is here.
Now, who holds the power in Confederation? Is it the federal government or is it the provinces?
Well, at the end of the day, it comes down to the Supreme Court, right? The Supreme Court is the authority that rules over everything in this country. There are constantly disputes between provinces and the federal government that end up in front of the Supreme Court. Right now, there is a case called the Impact Assessment Act. It's essentially what they're seeking is a reference to Bill C-69, which is otherwise dubbed as the No More Pipelines Law. 8 provinces have joined Alberta in opposing this bill, and Ottawa has no provinces on its side. Arguments were just heard in front of the Supreme Court, and it'll be interesting to see which side the Supreme Court takes in this matter. But at the end of the day, it does come down, the supreme authority in this country falls in the courts.
And we've heard talk about the rights of provinces, especially when it comes to mineral rights. But do provinces really have any rights to demand a better deal?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where Quebec's been doing this for years. They've been trying to seek really more control over their destiny within the affairs of their province for decades. And Alberta's just trying to seek a similar type of deal where we do have self-determination in our policy decisions, and we can find local solutions for local problems as they arise.
Now, we've heard a lot about grassroots efforts in this past election to get Conservative politicians elected in this most recent Alberta election. Yet the NDP gained seats in both Edmonton and Calgary. Do you have any ideas as to why there was such an orange wave, or maybe orange crush in Alberta's major cities?
Well, it's one of those things where the UCP came into power in 2019, and they rode a blue wave of frustration. And it's interesting the tack that the Alberta NDP took under leader Rachel Notley in this election, where they put her in a blue blazer and blue jeans and paraded around the province as if she was a Conservative. So it's one of those things where they tried to tone down their messaging. They tried to pull socialism right out of their party. They took a lot of broad, like really big swings on economics, and their environmental policy, which has been criticized as leading to issues regarding the investment climate in Alberta's energy sector, was effectively ignored by the party and a lot of people in the mainstream media as well. So it was very interesting to see that and the impact that it had in Calgary. That being said, there were certain elements of the United Conservative Party that I think did raise some concern. There were individuals that seemed to seek attention and try to get their name out there, and they were effectively liabilities on the party, I thought. And it did scare some voters in some of the more moderate regions of Calgary, like Acadia and Glenmore, where Whitney Issik and Tyler Shandro lost their seats. So it's one of those things where it's the combined effect, where it wasn't necessarily the cleanest campaign, and the NDP really, they went low. They focused on controversy. They didn't want to talk about themselves, so they tried to change channel. I think that all of those things combined did have an impact, but the fact of the matter is the UCP is in government. They've won 49 seats, 48 if you discount Jennifer Johnson and Lacombe Panoka, and they still have a strong mandate in the next 4 years to really drive about the change and stand up to Ottawa in a meaningful way as the federal government brings in policies like the Impact Assessment Act that we mentioned earlier, as well as the impending Sustainable Jobs Plan, the just transition in a new suit, we'll call it. So we've got a lot of things going on, but I think both sides can claim victory, but at the same time, I think both sides have pause for concern in the way that they approach the election campaign and how it shook out in the results.
So you touched a little bit about Rachel Notley when she was campaigning, and even during the debates, being orange in blue clothing. Do you feel that the UCP did something similar when they were campaigning? It seems like they made a lot of promises when it came to healthcare and education, which are two things that the NDP really love to talk about.
Yeah, I think that they definitely did do that. They tried to seem moderate and tried to moderate in their approach. I do think that it did help take the edge off. There was a lot of times during the campaign I felt the NDP were trying to paint the UCP as an extremist, radical, right-wing conservative party when it is a big tent party. There are a lot of moderate conservatives in it, and that's something that I think Danielle, in her approach as leader and as premier, has tried to have a collaborative approach with people within the party and try to really reach out to as many people within the party as she can, not least on the same thing in the NDP. And I think that's why we saw such a close election in several key ridings that ultimately could have flipped either way.
Now, it really was a two-horse race because, I mean, none of the fringe parties or the smaller parties got any seats. But do you think that they allowed the NDP to gain seats in Calgary and Edmonton?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I mean, maybe in the sense of the NDP, the UCP did manage to have the Wild Rose Independence Party, the Alberta Independence Party, all of these separatist fringes effectively disappeared with the adoption of the Alberta Sovereignty Act last November. The NDP, though, they had the bonus of the Alberta Party and the Alberta Liberal Party effectively seeing their vote total disintegrated. What that's led to is an extremely polarized environment. I thought it was very interesting this campaign that both parties spent so much time trying to moderate their rough edges and kind of come closer to the center. And I think the results of the campaign, or the results of the election, really highlight those key points.
And you touched on this a little bit earlier, but can you just give us your thoughts on the close races involving Tyler Shandro and Whitney Isaac, who lost their seats in Calgary? Also, maybe touch on Casey Madhu being ousted in Edmonton. Could that have something to do with calling the Edmonton police chief about a speeding ticket?
Yeah, I'm not going to touch too closely on the controversy there. I'm obviously not a lawyer. I don't understand how that works or what he was doing, but I don't know if it was so much these individual issues with the candidates as just a shift in voter dynamic. Casey Madhu, he barely won a seat, and in 2019, Shandro and Isaac had stronger majorities, but they were very much in these swing ridings 4 years ago that went UCP. So we are seeing. It's tough to see too, because Tyler Shandro, I thought towards the end was a really good cabinet minister. I loved his. He was law and order Shandro at the end, I like to call him. But it is something that I do think we are seeing shifting dynamics, and maybe maybe some of the attacks the NDP laid on the UCP really did scare some of the more moderate conservatives to stay home on election day that otherwise would have turned out in those ridings, as turnout was relatively low compared to the last election.
Now, getting back to the grassroots, do you have any sights set on the next provincial election? I mean, Rachel Notley, she has lost 2 elections in a row. She's staying on as leader. Well, do you think she'll run in the next election?
You know what? The next 4 years is going to be fascinating. I mean, the NDP as a party, I think, really does revolve around Rachel Notley. It was her face on most of the signs, even in some of the ridings I was in Calgary. You know, it's Rachel Notley's picture everywhere. I don't know who the local candidate is.
I saw that too.
The issue is that, and it's very interesting in the sense that Notley is a very good public speaker. She's very charismatic. She's very smart. She's very well spoken. She knows the issues in and out. She knows enough about the issues to be able to moderate her position when she gets pressured from one side or the other. Some people buy it, some people don't, but she is a very capable politician. I find the federal scene very interesting from her standpoint. The Alberta or the provincial NDP, or sorry, the federal NDP, they've been propping up the Liberal government for a long time. Is Jagmeet Singh going to survive the next 4 years? Is an opening in the federal NDP? I mean, I could see Rachel Notley trying to pull a Jack Layton, where she kind of tries to repeat what happened in 2011 federally and what she did in 2015 on the federal arena. Perhaps that opens the door for Naheed Nenshi or Shannon Phillips, perhaps a name that most people in Lethbridge would be familiar with. Or does she ride out the 4 years and take another crack at it? I mean, I think there is historical precedent of an opposition leader losing multiple elections in the province of Alberta. Maybe not for the past few years, but it's going to be very interesting to see how this two-party dichotomy impacts the way that the NDP operates over the next 4 years. Is this election a win, or is it, since they're not in power, is it a loss? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the party grassroots, how the party establishment, and how the leader herself approach the next 4 years, and whether or not Notley is still the leader of the NDP in 2027.
So we're talking about Notley now. What about Alberta Premier Danielle Smith? Do you think she'll survive the next 4 years?
I think so. I think she's learned a lot in the last 8 months or so. A lot about leadership, a lot about collaboration, a lot about, listening to people, and maybe sometimes you make a mistake and learning from that mistake. Whether or not there are snakes in the party that rise up and try and nip at her heels, it is a possibility. Maybe she doesn't survive, but if she goes down, it will likely be because of internal party revolt, as we saw with Premier Kenney. There are two parties that have merged here. The Wild Rose and the PCs didn't always see eye to eye. There was it took a long time to get them together, and they're still infighting. So does Smith survive? I think so. I think her approach is right. I think she is trying to be academic and intellectual, strong, steady. You maybe slow down a little bit, but if she keeps this approach and she stays the course, I think she should be fine. And it does come down on a lot of ways to federal policy as well. I mean, if the federal government comes in with the just transition and brings in legislation that effectively will legislate an entire industry out of existence in oil and natural gas, I think that's going to create almost more pressure on her to do more in terms of dealing with Ottawa. And if she does that, I think that's a winning message. I think that's something that people in this province do care about. They care about the economy. They care about their jobs. They care about their ability to feed their families and heat their homes. And any policy that comes in that's going to take that ability away from people, I think it's going to be very unpopular. And I think it's going to give Danielle Smith enough support, not just within the party, but from people around the province to do her job.
Josh Andrus is the Executive Director of Project Confederation. Thank you so much for your time today.
Perfect.
You were awesome. And I'm Naveen Day. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.